One of the best pieces of business advice I've ever gotten from a mentor is this: making money should be boring. But I have to admit, when I first heard this, my response was, what? No, I want making money to be anything but boring. I want to be making it doing my life's passion. Thankfully though, over the years, I've come to see its wisdom. Not to mention that it has helped add at least 7 figures to my bottom line. Because it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy and love what you do. In fact, keeping certain things boring in your business is how you'll better build a business that you love. So let's talk about that how. Starting with way number 1, which might sound a little counterintuitive at first, but which will actually help you grow much faster. For my first 5 years in this business, I only had one product, a program called Employee to Entrepreneur, which shows you how to take your skills and use them to build a business that replaces your salary and allows you to leave your 9 to 5. Throughout those 5 years, did I ever get tired of selling the same product over and over again? Yes, for sure. But I also kept in mind what my mentor had told me, which is what I also recommend for you. Keep it boring with just one product, especially in the beginning. I'm not gonna lie though, I was so tempted to create new products. But the truth is, in the beginning, your first product will have a lot of room for improvement. So instead of jumping from new product to new product, do the boring work of improving what you've already got. This way, you can deliver better results, gather more testimonials, and focus on figuring out how to scale your product so that you can help more people and thus also make more sales. For example, I first launched Employee to Entrepreneur as a one-on-one coaching service, but as I improved the product, I was able to systematize it into group coaching. Then, as I got even better at teaching the material, I was able to eventually turn it into a self-study course. Both my product and I needed time to evolve and mature, which is why I'm so glad I gave it the focus that it needed during those first 5 years. Plus, doing it this way resulted in 2 very important things. First, I was able to help more people. High five to that. Second, that in turn grew my business. We're talking adding multiple millions via just one product. And this one product philosophy isn't just unique to me either. If you look at the majority of successful companies, you will see that 1 to 2 products drive a disproportionately large percentage of their overall revenue. For example, look at Amazon's web services. This one division currently generates the majority of Amazon's operating income. So I hope this helps you feel less overwhelmed, because it means that you don't need to split your attention in 10 different ways. Plus, if you have a coaching, consulting, or education type business, it's also much simpler to figure out what your one product should be, because it's probably going to be the thing that you are most qualified to teach. And you can also do the same thing I did, evolving from one-on-one coaching to group coaching to a self-study course. The reason focusing your product suite like this is so effective is because when you think about it, each time you roll out a new product, what you're really doing is you're essentially starting a brand new mini business from scratch, which means that for every new product, you have to figure out all the pieces from zero: marketing, sales, delivery, reputation. But it's a lot easier to go from 1 to 10 than it is to go from 0 to 1. So why not make it easier for yourself by not having to go from 0 all the time and instead allowing yourself to build more momentum with what you've already got? I truly believe that focus always pays off. To this day, in my now multi-million-dollar business, Employee to Entrepreneur is still one of our biggest revenue drivers. Plus, because of the foundation that my focus built during those first 5 years, now we are able to create a lot more products. So don't worry that you won't be able to eventually create all the things that you want. You will, but just don't shift your focus too early. This will help you reach 6, multiple 6, and possibly even 7 figures so much faster. But your product also isn't the only thing that should be boring. It's also how you go about selling your product. That's why way number 2 is to choose the boring but effective strategies. This is how I've personally driven a lot of traffic to my website over the last 5 years. specifically using one very boring method, SEO/blogging. See, even saying that feels a little bit womp womp because it's not as sexy or exciting as talking about how to go viral on social media. But the thing is, and this is so true for your business too, it's not about what looks sexy. What I care much more about, and I hope you feel the same way too, is sexy results. And a lot of the time, the things that look sexy are almost mutually exclusive from the things that produce the sexy results. At least this is my observation from having built my business over the last decade, where we've tried basically everything. But over the years, my boring SEO strategy has outperformed ads, affiliates, social media, and more. And it now drives 7 figures in revenue each year. But I'm not saying that you need to do SEO or blogging. Like I always say on this channel, it's about figuring out what's best for you. So the important takeaway here is the thinking behind my boring strategy. First, what strategy suits you, including your strengths and weaknesses, best? For example, what led me to SEO was knowing that I'm analytical, enjoy in-depth teaching, and love doing things in a systematized, scalable way. It fits perfectly with SEO, which is all about looking at the numbers and thinking about keywords and traffic in a really analytical way. Plus, in case you can't tell, I love in-depth content creation. And the strategy I chose lets me focus on creating more detailed content that provides more value. So this is almost like a life hack, because when you choose a strategy that fits you better, you're probably also going to get better results with it too. But as you know, it's not just about you. You also need to keep this second reason in mind. What will attract your ideal client? To me, the best type of client is someone who has already been actively searching for a solution. So when they find you, they're like, yes, this is exactly what I've been looking for to help me solve my problem. In my mind, SEO positions you perfectly to do just that. Because when your ideal client searches for a term, poof, there you are at the top of the results. So ask yourself, what strategy makes sense to me based on how I want to market to my audience and who my ideal clients are? If you take even a second right now to think about this, you could easily avoid one of the most common and costly mistakes that I see a lot of new entrepreneurs make: jumping into a strategy just because everyone else is doing it. But the truth is, you never know what's actually going on behind the scenes of someone else's business. But also, just because a strategy is working beautifully for someone else, that has nothing to do with what's going to work best for you and your business. But I think this is awesome because it means that you get to drive, choosing a strategy that's the best for you. And then, as we've been talking about, keep it boring. This way, you can stay consistent, compound your results, and not get distracted by shiny objects. And I say this as someone who has personally struggled with getting distracted a lot, especially in the beginning of my very first online business. At the time, I was still working my busy 9-to-5 and trying to build my business on the side. So a lot of the time after work, I would sit down to try and work on my business, but feel so unmotivated. Because it's hard to feel inspired or motivated when you're new and not yet seeing a lot of results from what you're doing. But here's a reframe that I think will help. The more that you are not yet seeing results, assuming that you've chosen a strategy that makes sense for you, the more that means there's room for improvement. So you just have to keep going and getting better. Which is why way number 3 is to maintain that boring consistency, even when you don't feel like it. Because here's the critical piece that most people miss about what consistency actually is. It isn't doing the same thing day after day. What it actually is doing the same thing day after day, but just a little bit better. Because if you can improve just 1% compared to what you did the day before, that daily 1% improvement compounded over a year means that you will be 37 times better by the end of that year. That is the power of consistency. But I also know that's much easier said than done, which is why I'm also going to share some of my best tips to help you stay consistent. First, you've got to understand what you're doing and why it's going to work, and thus be able to lead you to those sexy results. For example, if you want to master social media growth, you got to learn the psychology, basic algorithm, and what kind of content grows your account. Next, you got to make sure that whatever you choose feels good to you, because that's the only way to be able to maintain that consistency until you get to where you want to go. Then, as you start getting feedback from your action, you can analyze why you're not yet getting the results that you want, as well as what to do to improve just 1% every day. It might not be immediate, but I promise you, when you're not operating on just blind faith and thus making intentional progress, one day when you look back on what you've done, you are going to tell yourself, thank goodness I stuck with it, because look at what that 1% improvement compounded has got me to. And by the way, this happens to everyone. It's just part of the journey. So don't get discouraged. As one of my personal examples, I've always loved writing. So knowing how profitable email marketing can be, I started sending daily weekday emails many years ago. The problem was, I am an engineer by training. So my first emails that first year or two, as you can imagine, were very boring and did not make a ton of sales. But I'd done my research, so I knew that this was a proven strategy, and I also knew where the gap in my skill set was, because most of the time, that's really what it comes down to. So I tried my best to make each email just a little more interesting. Some days I guessed, and other days I got lucky and got some feedback from my subscribers. Now, these days, my subscribers often tell me that my emails are the best ones they get and that they look forward to them every day. If you want to see what I'm talking about, you can sign up for my free newsletters too by going to luisazhou.com. Choose whichever free training you think will help you best, and then afterwards you'll start getting that training as well as my daily weekday emails. If it helps, I hope you remember this story the next time that you feel discouraged, of how I went from a very academic and robotic sounding engineer to a fairly skilled storyteller and writer whose emails now drive 7 figures each year. It's to the point now where people sometimes accuse me of lying because they cannot believe that I'm not a natural. But my first email subscribers can confirm. So if I can do it using the steps that we just went over, so can you. Seriously. But I know that it can still feel really hard to keep going sometimes, even when you know all this logically. That's why in this next video, I walk you through how to reprogram your mind so that you're able to grow your business a lot more consistently and probably faster too. So if you're finding it hard to keep going and not judge yourself for not yet being where you want to be, I think you'll find this video super helpful, and I will see you over there.